We are going to show you today how to make buttermilk biscuits from scratch. And again, these are great as to either have for breakfast, maybe either as a side with some jam, make a breakfast sandwich, add some bacon, cheese, fried egg on it. I even make biscuits and gravy. I even add cheese and jalapeno and serve them with my dinner sometimes. So possibilities are endless. The one thing I want to talk to you about is, though, we talked about the buttermilk. So buttermilk is actually a enzyme is added to it to curdle. Buttermilk originally is if you take whole milk and you shake it and shake it and shake it and you curdle it, and what you get is the butter. What is left is what makes the buttermilk. So we can actually come up with substitutes for buttermilk, and that is included in the worksheet that I gave you. So I am going to be using buttermilk, but again, you have non-dairy or other options, or how to make a buttermilk out of using just whole milk. So the first thing we want to do, I have preheated my oven to 450 degrees, so it's a really hot oven. I'm going to first take all my dry ingredients and going to put them in one bowl. So that's 2.5 cups of the flour. I'm going to add my 1 teaspoon of salt. Going to add my 1 tablespoon of baking powder. So baking powder is a leavener, so that's how we're going to get these to puff up. So really neat if you have your baking powder at home. It has a little line across there. If you go in, measure it, and as you pull it out, remember, anytime we measure anything dry, it needs to be nice and level. So 1 tablespoon of the baking powder, and then 1 teaspoon of the baking soda. And the same thing, I'm just dragging it out. So it's a combination of those that are going to help leaven. I'm just going to whisk them together really well. Make sure they're combined, and then we're going to use that same method called cutting in the fat that we did with the arugula dough or your pie dough. So this one has both the combination again of butter and shortening. Okay. Again, this one though is currently a lot more butter. It's a cup of butter or 1 stick of butter to the shortening, which is only 2 tablespoons. So we want a little bit of the shortening fat, again, because we are cooking at that really high temperature of 450. That's going to help with the flakiness. Plus the process of how we're going to mix the dough is going to help. But we like this butter to give us a lot of flavor. So again, you just want to go in, kind of pre-cut it up, get some little chunks. I'm just using a butter knife. Get it cold. Your body temperature will start to melt it. I have seen biscuit methods where you can actually mix by hand, but again, your body temperature is going to melt that butter, and we want everything to be really as cold as possible. And then that is 2 tablespoons of shortening. Now what I give you, it will be measured and ready to go. So you can keep that butter and shortening in the refrigerator until you're ready to do it. So if you have that pastry blender, you can use it, but I thought I'd go ahead and show it with the fork. Again, I just want to go ahead and start mixing. And what you're doing is you're just taking your fork and breaking up, and I'm just pushing the fat pieces through the fork, okay, and getting them well combined into the flour. So this is called cutting in the fat, and I'm just smashing. That's all I'm doing, is smashing that fat through the fork, and it's forcing the flour glutens to attach to them. I have seen people do them in a food processor. You would not want to do them in a mixer because, again, we're not making dough. We're making not a dough that we want to knead. We're making more of a batter, and that it will be a little wetter, but again, we want to keep the flakiness. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. This is going to take a couple more minutes. until I can get it all combined. So I think I have all of the shortening and the butter broken up into little pieces. Again, give it a little shake and see if you have any. You'll see, you know, little chunks, pea size. That's perfect. All right, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create what's called a well, and that means I'm simply gonna move the flour mixture kind of up the sides of the bowl and create a little hole in the middle. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of my fork, and I'm gonna need now just a wooden spoon, and I'm gonna add all that buttermilk right into the middle. And we're gonna go ahead and start to incorporate. And I just kind of bring the flour in from the sides and stir. Now it's not gonna be perfectly smooth, okay, so don't overwork it. Just start to mix. You need to bring it in and kind of just push it together. Make sure the bottom of the bowl, everything gets stirred. Bring it around, smash it in. Okay. Everything off the sides. Okay, so again, it's a very sticky dough. That's what we're looking for, which is excellent. So now what you're going to do is, I believe in the directions it tells you to line it out on a floured surface, but I'm trying to avoid adding too many more glutens, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use a piece of parchment. And I'm just trying to get everything off my spoon. I'm trying not to touch it with my hands because it is so sticky. The batter is going to stick to my hands. So what I have, and I will give to you, is a piece of parchment. Now it's not wax paper. If you have wax paper at home, you can use that. You just don't want to bake on wax paper. And what you're going to do is you're going to take now that dough and you're going to place it right in the middle, or that batter, and get everything out of your bowl. I might just sprinkle a little bit of flour, but I'm going to try to avoid that. Okay, so all my batter, my dough, is on my parchment. I'm going to just sprinkle the top with a little bit more flour, but not a lot. And what I want to do is kind of like that kneading action that we did, but I'm not going to knead it. So I just want to bring it together and kind of flatten it and fold it. And I'm going to just sprinkle this just a little bit because I see it's sticking to the parchment. And then I'm going to flip it this way. Okay, sprinkle that. And then take the dough and fold it over on top of itself so it's folded in half. Okay, and then flatten that back out and fold it in half the other way. And you're going to do that about 6 to 8 times. And if you have to, each time, just sprinkle a little bit of flour, but you want to change the direction each time that you fold it and just kind of flatten it out. And that's it. We don't want to do it again too much. Again, we are a little sticky. I'm just going to do a little bit of flour, flip it out. And that time was pretty good. All right, now you can have the decision. You can do, I would say, 9 biscuits if you want to do bigger, like especially if you want to do sandwiches, or you can do 12 if you want to do, if you're going to do like biscuits or something for dinner. So again, I'm going to decide I'm actually going to make these into sandwiches. So I think I'm going to go just a little bit bigger on my dough. Now, if you have a biscuit cutter, you can use that, cut circles out. I'm actually just going to go ahead and free shape this, and I'm going to go to about a 6 by 6, a little bit bigger square. Okay, so if you guys can see that. So I'm going to go up the sides, just dusting my hands a little bit. So square, and then I'm going to pat it out. I'm going to say they're about 1 inch thick. Okay, so nice and even, nice little square, and nice even thickness all the way around. All right, I'm going to use just my butter knife, and like I said, I'm going to do 9, so I'm going to go right down, score it into thirds, and then I'm going to do thirds the other direction. That one's a little off. I may add a little dough to that one. Okay, then you're going to need your cookie sheet or your pan, and I'm going to line it with parchment. And then you're going to come in here, and I'm going to scoop it up from the bottom very carefully and take my biscuit and place it right on to the half sheet pan. Take it after it's cut, lift it, and line it onto the pan. I will show you what those look like. All right, and the recipe then calls at the bottom for 2 more tablespoons of melted butter. And you can even use any milk that you have at home. And what you want to do is just brush the surface of these to create a nice little wash. So just like you did with the cookie dough, the arugula, you just want to do a nice little topper on it. It can be butter, it can be milk, it can be even a little bit of water and honey. So if you want to do that. Okay, I've got 8. I'm going to have to figure out where to put that 9th one. I didn't leave room for it. I'll put it off to the side. I'm going to cut a little bit off of one. And I'm just kind of evening out my side a little bit on this one. Just so that they're all even. I'm going to put it in the middle. They're going to touch probably just a little bit. So these are going to go in that 450 degree oven for, I would say 15 to 20, but we'll check. I'm just going to put a quick wash on these, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done. All right, that was 15 minutes in the oven, and you can see how much they have really expanded. Again, I told you I was going to make sandwiches out of these, so if you want to do a dinner biscuit, maybe you added cheddar and jalapeno to it, I would do them smaller, use a little biscuit cutter, cut them into so you have a perfect dozen. I'm going to let these cool, plate them up, and I'll show you what they look like. Oh, they smell so good.